Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Mail Club Corner. I make a webcomic called Cast Off, and every month I make 2 stickers and a print for the Comics Monthly Mail Club. This month is Cast Off's 11th anniversary, so to celebrate, I didn't do a special theme or AU or anything, just the characters being cute and having a nice time. However, this means that I don't have a lot to say about the artwork itself. So instead of spending the whole video just talking about the art like usual, I wanted to discuss a topic that I see floating around on the internet a lot. How do you know when you're ready to start a webcomic? I've got a lot of thoughts on this subject as a person who's made multiple webcomics over the last 20 years, so let's roll the time lapse and we can get into it. First, give me 2 seconds to talk about the art here. Every year for the comics anniversary, I try to do a print that includes most of, if not the entire main cast. Since I've made a few plushies of the characters over the last few years, and I'm a big fan of crane games and the like, I thought it'd be fun to draw plush versions of the cast inside one and throw my mascot star Carmine in there as a cameo. The colors in this one gave me a lot of trouble since crane games are usually lit from the inside, meaning the foreground needed to be the part mostly in focus while also not making background star too much or not enough in focus. I got there eventually, but it took a lot of poking. You'll definitely be able to see the struggle as the time-lapse goes on. Also, just for fun, I threw a few other non-cast-off OCs in there to fill space. Can you spot them all? Okay, now onto the topic at hand. How do you know when you're ready to start a comic, or hell, any other big creative project for that matter? From my experience, I didn't have a single divine moment of enlightenment where I felt 100% ready to start my comic. Quite frankly, I don't think moments like that exist. If you sit around waiting for the moment you feel 100% prepared to make a comic, you may as well prepare yourself to take that story to the grave. And dead men tell no tales, or dead artists make no webcomics. For me, starting Cast Off wasn't because of a feeling of readiness. It was more like taking advantage of an opportunity. I had shelved my first webcomic a few years prior, had finally found a stable job after college, and suddenly had a lot more creative energy to burn. I was finally in a good mental state after not being in one for a long time and wanted to do something, make something. And I had been knocking ideas for Cast Off around for like 5 years at that point, thought, why the hell not, and started revving the engines. But I didn't just jump straight into the comic. I wrote a loose outline for the story, scripted a few chapters. I had been drawing the characters a lot in my sketchbooking during the brainstorming phase, so I generally had their designs down. I didn't know everything I wanted to do with the story, but I wasn't going in completely blind either. But preparation isn't just the lead-up work you do for that one project, it's also about building your skills. And I did do a lot of things to build my comic making skills that led up to the comic's creation that made me feel more prepared to take those steps into starting Cast Off. If you don't know, Cast Off was not my first webcomic. I had a comic I ran for 3 years before Cast Off started, a few attempts at longer webcomics before that, and many, many years of making comic strips about video games and my real life going back even further. In fact, I went back and dug up my stash of old-ass comics a few months ago, intending to make a video where I redrew some of them just to see the art progression. I'll do that eventually, stay tuned. But this is how my art looked when I was in 6th grade. I was a little baby, and obviously these do not have the same quality as my newer stuff, because I was brand new to drawing and still learning how to do things. But if I hadn't made these comics, Cast Off would not exist. These comics were stepping stones on the path toward Cast Off, learning experiences that I gained knowledge from, exercises in drawing and paneling and anatomy and expressions and body language and storytelling. But more importantly, I did them because they were fun. They taught me that I love making comics, that it was something I knew I'd want to spend the rest of my life doing. Readiness isn't a state of being. It's a mindset of being willing and able to adapt, learn as you go, and continue to move forward even if you're scared. And readiness, most importantly, isn't something you can gain without the experience of doing. You can prepare as much as you want, watch as many videos about writing and drawing and making comics as you want, but you'll never be ready until you have the courage to actually start. You'll never be ready to play the tuba in a symphonic orchestra if you've never touched a tuba before. You'll never be ready to build a house if you've never held a hammer. You'll never be ready to run a marathon if you've never run a mile before. And you won't be ready to start a comic if you've never even tried. Another way to put it is that if you want to make webcomics, you must have the audacity of both an overexcited middle schooler and a mediocre white man. You have to be so excited to do the thing that you run faster than your shame can catch you, and be so sure of yourself that you stride forward without fear. Which is, I acknowledge, all much easier said than done. But it gets easier with practice. So pick up the pencil and practice. Okay, I have more to say on the topic, but we're changing the time lapse, so I gotta talk about that for a second. The print's done, so now let's talk about the stickers. Honestly, I didn't have any strong ideas when I first sat down to do these, just that I wanted to draw the characters being cute. And I realized during brainstorming that I hadn't ever done stickers of the characters in their little subgroups, so I played around with a few ideas until I found some compositions I liked. We've got the Vector, Frankie, and Rory trio for one. I call them the Troubled Teens trio, but some readers have started calling them the Lighthouse trio, which is adorable. And Marina and Ariana for the other, who have many ship names, but Island Punch is the most common. Anyway, back to my ramblings. Now that I've given a general breakdown on the topic, I want to give a little bit of my own personal experience. Like I said before, feeling ready to start Cast Off was less knowing literally about what's going to happen in the comic with every plot point written down in detail and scripts for the entire comic written, revised, and ready to go, and more like, I have an idea, I want to make a comic, I will combine the two, and do the thing. But let's go into more detail about what that looked like. I see so many people wanting to make comics who feel like they aren't ready to start because they don't have all their ducks in a row yet. I can start my webcomic now. I haven't figured out all of the world building. I don't have the entire story scripted yet. I only have 200 pages of buffer. I don't even know the names of every person in this character's family tree yet. And if this is something you relate to, I am going to figuratively put a very gentle hand on your shoulder and say, it's okay. You don't need to have every single thing worked out right at the start. I'm 11 years into this comic, and I have never drawn character turnarounds. Not even once. My references are messy sketches with swatches I can use to sample my colors from, and I didn't make those until chapter 11? Before that, I literally just had squares for each character's flat colors and relied on my memory to draw them. I didn't design Cast Off's world map until the first page it appeared on, which was almost 200 pages in, by the way. Most of the minor characters I designed as I was drawing them on the first page they appeared on. I didn't bother giving the characters birthdays until last year, with the exception of a few that were more important to the timeline. I've had a rough outline since before I started, but in most instances that outline is boiling every chapter down to characters go here and then do this. I script a few chapters ahead, but I never had any illusions of having the entire story written before starting. Mostly because if I already have scripts written, I'll be more reluctant to change things if I end up having better ideas. And in the process of making the comic, things have changed from my original outline. In the first version, the main trio got to Marina and Rory's island, stayed the night, then got a ride to the mainland the next morning. There was no drama, no conflict, and it was all hideously boring, to the point I almost cut Marina and Rory out of the story entirely. Then at some point I had the idea, what if I split the party? And the entire arc that spans chapters 8 through 10 metamorphosized into what exists today. If I had stuck to my original vision, some of my favorite chapters wouldn't be in the story. If I had tried to script that far in advance before starting, I would have been a lot more reluctant to change course. So in this instance, a lack of over-preparedness was actually a huge benefit to the story. And this isn't even the only example. I've mentioned several times that chapter 12, which is almost entirely a flashback focusing on Sage's backstory, almost wasn't in the story at all. The original version was him monologuing to the camera, expositing critical info to the main cast like some kind of concentrated plot smoothie, distilling that entire history down to the crucial elements and delivering it in a highly condensed and flavorless form. And as I was finishing chapter 11, mere months before I had to start drawing the info dump in question, I realized I hated it! It sucked! It was all tell, no show. It was like if Luke learned Darth Vader was his father because he saw a flyer saying so pinned to the wall. That's basically what the original version of chapter 12 was. It sucked! I ended up throwing out the condensed version and instead writing an entire flashback chapter, putting in a ton of detail and emotional weight to emphasize that part of the story. Because the stuff we learn from chapter 12 is critical to understanding the entire narrative. But I know full well that if I had already scripted a whole bunch past that, I would have been a lot more hesitant to change it, even if it was for the better. I've even made some big changes to the stuff that's happening in the comic right now, though it's gonna be a while before I can fully explain what that means. Ask me about it no earlier than the end of chapter 15. Might be longer, depends on how those chapters shake out. I haven't scripted them yet. The point of all this is, you don't have to have absolutely everything prepared right from the jump. You can change things as you go. Give yourself time and freedom to brainstorm. It's good to plan ahead, but your ducks don't always have to walk in a perfect row. Letting them stray a little from the path can lead to new and interesting discoveries about your story and your process. Find the way to walk that works for you and walk it, even if it doesn't match up with what everyone else is doing. The important thing is that you take the steps and don't be too scared of the great unknown, because waiting until you're ready may mean never doing anything at all. And that's all the yapping I've got for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you started a webcomic or any other big creative project? If not, what are you waiting for? What are you scared of? What's holding you back? Let's talk about it and encourage each other down below. It's a hard world out there, and sometimes the smallest words of encouragement can make the biggest difference. As always, if you'd like to get the art I drew in this video, you can do so by joining my Patreon this month, and if you haven't already, you can read the entirety of my webcomic Cast-Off for free at castoff-comic.com. Links for all those will be down in the description. A huge thank you to my lovely and wonderful patrons, and a special thanks to my video shout-out tier members, Holly, Mr. Don Matsu, Alyssa Herzog, and Neon Valkyrie. Thank you for helping to fund a Switch 2 so I can spend my entire weekends playing Pokopia. I have pics of my builds on Blue Sky, if anyone wants to see. Anyway, that's it for me. Fare thee well, friends, and I will see y'all next time. Bye!